Thank you everybody who came today from near and many from quite far. Each of you as an individual, your presence is appreciated. And you see all the faces, many of whom we can meet personally. I don't know if everyone got to meet everyone, but each one of you making a contribution just by being here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We were planning this event, so we were trying to decide is it going to be a formal event or an informal event. So we decided, well, it's called the Long Island Torah Network, which means that it's going to be a Jewish event. If it's a Jewish event and it's informal, there's going to have to be bagels. And if it's going to be formal, it's going to have to be speeches. So we decided to have both, and that way everybody can be satisfied. So they said, it's okay, but don't bore them with a long speech. So I said, it'll be hard, but I'll try to see if I can bore them with a short speech. None of what I just said was true. What's it? Memenu b'kesef shasinu, eitzenu b'machir yavo. In English, what does that mean? We drank our water in exchange for money, and we paid a price for our firewood. This describes a dark period in Jewish history, the suffering of the Jews during the period surrounding the destruction of the temple. So the picture is pretty stark. When the Jews are conquered, oppressed, and robbed, the enemy steals their most basic possessions, their water, their firewood, and then they turn around and say, oh, you'd like it back? That's fine, pay for it. The Talmud tells us another story, equally true. It's more of a metaphor. In Scripture, water is often used as a metaphor for Torah study. Torah is essential for life, just like water. So the Talmud tells us that Rabbi Akiva was, in some ways, possibly the greatest scholar that ever existed in Jewish history, was imprisoned by the Roman government, and they eventually killed him. But at the time that he was imprisoned, the rabbis of his time needed his advice on a matter of Torah law, so they paid a large sum of money to the jailers to get access to Rabbi Akiva and consult with him. So Torah is water. They had to pay for the water. Memenu b'kesef shasinu. The analogy is quite puzzling. The basic meaning of the text, the first example we can understand. Someone comes, steals our water, forces us to pay to get it back. Such injustice, such oppression, such indignity. The Jewish people cry out in pain at the suffering. Look what's being done to us, how we're being trampled upon. What about the second example? With Rabbi Akiva, the Jews had to pay a sum of money to ask Rabbi Akiva a question. So, we pay for lots of things that we want. We pay to consult with our doctors, we pay to consult with our lawyers, we pay for all sorts of services. What's wrong if you have to pay the rabbi too? Now granted, you don't want to have to pay the Romans, you want to pay the rabbi. And Rabbi Akiva has some cause for complaint because he's being persecuted and imprisoned. What is this cry of pain from the Jewish people? We had to pay for Torah studies. So it's valuable to you. Did anybody rob anything? Were you robbed? Did anybody steal anything from you? Was something taken from you? Somebody took your water and made you pay for it? But Yirmiyahu HaNavi, who I believe was the author of this verse, he apparently looked at it that way. He didn't say, well, it's Rabbi Akiva's wisdom. What if Rabbi Akiva would have said, hey, guys, I'm very busy, I'm happy to help you, but you need to pay me for my time? Yirmiyahu HaNavi felt that wouldn't be okay. He says, that's not Rabbi Akiva's wisdom. He has no right. He doesn't have any more right to charge for it, any more than the Romans have a right to charge me for it. Rabbi Akiva's wisdom is not Rabbi Akiva's. Rabbi Akiva's wisdom is mine. It's the Jewish people's. The Jewish people have a need and they have a right. The Torah study is ours. If we have to pay, if we are blocked from access to the Torah wisdom that should be ours, we cry out at the injustice as if somebody were stealing our own water and our own firewood and demanding that we pay for it. If Yirmiyahu HaNavi said that means it wasn't just Yirmiyahu HaNavi saying that. He was expressing the pain of the Jewish people. And it wasn't just the Jewish people of the time, the rabbis, the scholars, or people who lived a couple of thousand years ago. Because we say this verse out loud in the synagogue every year, just as we get together on Passover and relive the Exodus and reconnect with what our ancestors experienced when they came out of Egypt. We get together in the synagogue and relive the destruction of the temple on the 9th of Av, on the fast day that commemorates the destruction, and we relive what our ancestors experienced then. And we know, just as on Passover, whether or not we can actually consciously feel like we came out of Egypt, but we're supposed to, and on some level, subconsciously we do. That's why we're here today. Those connections are what kept us going in a spiritual sense, and they make us who we are today. And in the same sense, we still feel that pain that the Jews felt then. It's a reality. We wouldn't say it if it weren't true. The Jewish people, internally in their collective soul, they feel that anguish. How can we be deprived of Torah study any more than we can be deprived of water? To me, this is so appropriate, so relevant to the gathering today, because that's what Long Island Torah Network is. Where you can build a school and you can try to get students. You can have many students, or you can have a few students. You can have a synagogue. You can have a large membership. You can have a small membership. You can recruit more membership. But what's the Long Island Torah Network? What is a network? A network is a bunch of connections that only exist because of their interconnectedness to each other. Every connection makes everything else in the network stronger. That's all it is. If we were offering a service and people were paying for it, there would be no Long Island Torah Network. This organization exists because people have that sense of ownership. They feel it's not my Torah or your Torah, or we're giving you our Torah, or you're giving us your Torah. It's a partnership. It's something we all own, that we all share, and we want to share, and we want to share with more people. And everybody who comes here, who is here today, who comes and learns with us, has that feeling of a shared venture. It's something that we partner in, that we want to bring as many people into that partnership as we can. So that, I think, is really what we're celebrating. We're celebrating the fact that so many of us have found common ground, different ages, different backgrounds, different everything. And the one thing that we somehow managed to connect with and agree on and share and work together for is this treasure that we share as a nation, the Torah. So the best part of the speech is I don't actually have to end because I'm introducing the next speaker, which I think is, besides being a person who, besides his basic nobility or character, which I very much appreciate, I think in our relationship, I personally am grateful for his personification of that attitude, the ownership of the Torah as our treasure, and something that we do together. Not, this is something that one person gives to another, but something that it belongs to all of us. And he's taken the initiative to bring other people in, just as someone who has a glass of water and would want to share it with his brother on a hot day, because water is so important, and my brother is so important to me. Why wouldn't I want to share the water with him? So, without further ado, I would like to introduce, with many thanks, Jim Lodge.